Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you from, our houses. Once again, it's still quarantine time. It's a wonderful April 23rd as everything starts to heat up around the Southland. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, getting you ready for some more exciting LA Galaxy talk. We finally have a bracket. It's done. It's complete. You voted. We know who the winner is. We're going to tell you who the winner is. So we're going to have that. We have a lot of league news and some interesting sort of rumors that are coming back and forth and all sorts of in between there. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about, and hopefully, fingers crossed, joined a little bit later in the show, probably right around 7:15 or so. We'll be joined by former LA Galaxy defender, Mr. Todd Dunivant, who, if you're guessing, has played on one of the teams that did win our bracket. So we'll tell you who that is. To help me do all that, it's Eric, the Portuguese Hammer. He's back 2 weeks in a row. I had to like send his wife flowers and a whole bunch of stuff just to get him back for a second week in a row, but we made it happen.
I was going to say,
How you doing?
It's good to be back,
go ahead,
but I may need a break after this.
Yeah,
sorry. Again, having some technical difficulties here, so I'm probably on a little bit of delay. But it's good to be back, but I'll probably need a little break after this between all the FIFA streaming we have going on and podcast stuff and family, obligations and learning, home teaching and work. It's just crazy times in the household, but try to look big picture. We're all happy. We're all healthy. At the end of the day, that's a good thing. We're in a good spot.
Yeah, it seems that way. Well, good. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we could hang out for a little bit, and we got a bunch to get to. Let's start with a little bit of the new stuff that just came out. Obviously, on Thursdays, we get used to MLS making some sort of announcement about the state of the league and when everything is going to come back. And what we got today was an extension of the training moratorium. Now, we knew that it was going to be extended because, technically speaking, it was set to expire. That moratorium was set to expire on the 24th, so tomorrow, Friday, as we're recording. That now has been extended to Friday, May 15th. This should not surprise anybody. We all knew that there was no way in the world that anything would be started up, but the May 15th date is more interesting now, with the league, quote-unquote, setting expectations that they may be getting ready to start the league up in June. So you're at May 15th. You know that there needs to be a certain number of warm-up things that need to happen for training and everything else. That May 15th date starts to be a little more impressive if the LA Galaxy and all the teams in Major League Soccer Hammer are thinking about possibly coming back in June, which still seems a little bit of a reach, but right now that's sort of where we're at. This wasn't surprising to you, was it?
No, not surprising. I think we know that they're going bit by bit, piece by piece. They're not going and extending it or canceling anything whole hog. So just the fact that they, extended it the amount of time they did. Again, May 15th, we know that's hopeful. But again, if that is just a training moratorium, again, if they're going to move towards something that's closed doors, which seems like all signs are pointing towards some closed door games without fans, that the team is eventually going to need to be together. So, if precautions are taken and everyone's safety is put first and foremost, and they're able to get some type of training, maybe with some social distancing, just to get everyone at least on the same page, in the same location, I could see that possibly working. Again, it's still very hopeful. I don't know if they're, setting up training in Huntington Beach or what they have going on, if they're out there, but, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not surprised by it. I would expect probably one or two more extensions, though, realistically.
Yeah, it still seems like we're at the infancy of this whole thing. I think the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, I know I'm going deep on the politics side today. Angela Merkel said, we're not at the end of this. Nobody wants to say it. We're at the beginning of this. And so, we're going to be living in this quote unquote new normal for a little while. So all this stuff is things that we have to learn. Some of these processes that have to come out have not been developed yet. And so, as Californians, we've been hanging in there for the most part. Things have looked pretty good. We've done a good job of flattening the curve, all that. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to still get sick. And we've seen cases rise in LA County just in the recent days as well. So it's still a sort of sobering reality whenever you look at all the things that still need to happen. And as we talked about on Monday, if you missed Monday's show, which I think is a great, quick 35 minutes, some really interesting stuff from Kevin and I. But I talked to some players, and they're nervous about coming back. So this is not just a slam dunk hammer in terms of, hey, oh yeah, well, everybody go play. Well, the players are wondering how they're going to be kept safe during all this travel, everything else, testing. All those things are still answers that nobody seems to have. And so, again, May 15th, optimistic. June 8th, optimistic. However that ends up happening, it ends up happening. But this isn't a quick fix, and no matter how it is. And you've seen some rather large supporters groups, at least one or two, come out today and saying that they don't even support closed door games, which is, I think, more a turn when you're looking at it, Hammer. I think this was the Emerald City supporters up in Seattle. Who came out, but I think this is more about making sure that the players are safe and that making sure workers who have to work that in front office staff are safe. So closed door games for them, they're even opposing that right now, and I think it just has to do with safety. You're gonna have to prove that you can do that safely before you can even put them in a stadium, and then before you can even put fans in a stadium. Hammer, it's a whole bunch of things that still have to happen.
Yeah, I think, to me, that's very on brand for a supporters group. That's what they do. They support, and they believe that their support is what helps drive the team, and it leads to some of the team's success. So to me, for a supporters group to come out and say that they're in favor or not in favor of closed door games, it makes sense. But again, at the end of the day, they can say that they don't approve of it, but there are TV contracts to fulfill. There are other ways and people's livelihoods that may be at stake. So thank you for sharing the consideration, but it's not something that necessarily will be honored. And I just kind of want to go back to what you said about people wanting to go back to some type of normal and getting used to the new normal and wanting some answers. And I think a lot of people want answers right now, but they're not there. We're not at a point in this wave where we have the rapid testing, or we have proven techniques that are going to help curb this. The answers aren't there. So it is frustrating because we're navigating in a world where we want to know how can we solve this, but if you don't know what you don't know. And so I think it's not satisfying to tell people we need to hold and just wait until we gather more information, because as we see, people get a little bit impatient. We're going on 30, almost 40 days of people with the stay-in-home order in effect, and you're starting to see kind of the desperation, the need for something. And unfortunately, you don't want to force things. I always used to say, don't peak too soon, but this is almost the opposite. Don't be too soon. Yep. You don't want to go out and do something because you really want it to happen without having the science or the background or truly the information that's going to make it useful. So again, there's just not a lot of answers right now, and I think we need to start being accepting of the fact that we're not going to have answers, and that's okay. And that as long as everyone's healthy, that's the most important part.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. Everything will quote unquote find a new normal, or we'll adapt and do different things. So we'll get there. But before we get Todd Dunivant on, we have to reveal the winner of our bracket. We have a bunch more stuff to go over, and normally we save the bracket for the end, but it's important that you know who the winner of this bracket is. If you remember, we started with 16 teams, Hammer?
16 teams.
16 teams, all ranked according to points per game. And we then set them against each other. It wasn't perfect. I think that in a perfect world, our final would have been probably between 2011 and 2014, although there are some great arguments about 2012 to be made. So all these things happening. Our final matchup was 2011 versus 2012 and was 63% of the vote. Your vote. The 2011 team is the champions of the Corner of the Galaxy Madness 2020 Best LA Galaxy team ever. That is your champion. You have picked them, and I'm glad that you did, because they were an excellent team. I will tell you this, though, Eric, and you know this. I lost. The teams that I voted for in the last 2 rounds got knocked out. So I voted for 2014 over 2011, and I think I've argued that before. And I voted for 2012 over 2011. And my big argument here was, how did the LA Galaxy get worse in 2012? And the answer is they didn't. They didn't get worse. They got better. They got more of Robbie Keane, and they got Marcelo Sarvas in the midfield. And you look at Juninho and Marcelo Sarvas, and everybody generally considers them the best pairing that the LA Galaxy have had in the center. And so you put that together. But the 2011 team, certainly has a lot of accolades. They have the Supporter Shield there, Hammer. They have the MLS Cup. They finally got across the line in 2011. There was so much goodness that happened. I mean, 2010 has a great argument for best LA Galaxy team ever as well, but you all decided that it's 2011, and I don't know that I can sit here and really, really argue that 2011 was not the best LA Galaxy team ever winning the double. What do you think, Hammer?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it last week a little bit that the 2014 versus 2011 may have been the actual final. So maybe, if in a perfect world, if you had different seedings, you'd have those teams meeting in the final. But I think it was fine with 2011 versus 2012 in the final. We talked about this a little bit off air, that to me, if you choose, at their peak, a 2012 team versus at their peak, a 2011 team, I might go in favor of that 2012 team. But when you look at it, you need to reward the team that was dominant from beginning to end. They have a supporter shield. They have an MLS Cup. They, very few losses, star power, in and out. So I just think it's 2011 is a fair choice. And the fact that you could make arguments for 2014 and 2012 and 2010, you mentioned it last week. We really are a spoiled fan base because, again, there are so many teams that if you put them in any other team around the league or several other teams around the league, they'd be happy for our, fifth or sixth place ranking team. That would be their greatest team ever. So a little bit spoiled as an LA Galaxy fan to see that. I think 2011 was the right call. It was interesting on social media and Instagram and both Twitter. The votes didn't quite go in 2011's favor. So it just kind of shows you, and we made the official vote count on the cornerofthegalaxy.com website. So it was just a little bit interesting, but I don't think the votes were so skewed that 2011 was a reach. So congratulations, 2012. I know we have Todd Dunivant coming on in a little bit. The good news for him, and a strategically booked guest, well, no matter which team won, he would have been a part of that MLS Cup winning side, the best ever. So no matter what, he was the Iron Man of the 2011 season. Played the most games, 32 games played. So it's kind of fitting that we have him on today. But either way, he was going to come out on top because he was a member on quite a few MLS Cup winning LA Galaxy sides.
Somebody made a great argument that I remember. It was a really interesting one for sure. That was, they talked about the supporter shield and how important the supporter shield was in 2010 and 2011. And this person, and I believe they're correct because I was thinking back, I'm like, oh yeah, that's correct. In 2010 and 2011, you actually had balanced schedules, Eric. You had balanced schedules. You played everybody. You had the everything that you needed. So it was the perfect sort of thing to get you there in terms of the supporter shield and everybody else. Now, we're going to attempt this once more. We're gonna do our best. We're gonna fingers crossed the technology works. And welcome back to the show, a very good friend of the show and a guy who has 5 MLS Cup rings. And so we're glad to have him back on, a good friend of the show, Mr. Todd Dunivant. Todd, are you there, buddy?
Hey, yeah, good. Yeah, how are you guys? Thanks for having me on. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, or thanks for coming on. Yeah, we're this technology thing. We cross our fingers every time we try to pull this off live and do this. So we're glad it worked there. But we just announced, Todd, that the 2011 team was named by the voters at Corner of the Galaxy as the best LA Galaxy team ever. It beat out 2012 by 63 to 37%. On the voting. Now, I know when you and I were talking before, you said that if you had a vote, you would have put it on the 2011 team as well. Why was that 2011 team the best team, according to you?
Well, you can't go wrong with either team. I gotta be honest. Both pretty special, and so stoked to be part of both of those. But something about 2011, I think for me, we really started the rebuild, if you want to call it that. The renaissance of having a lot of success in 2009, and that was when Bruce really had his first full season to take over. We brought in a lot of new players, a lot of veteran players, drafted Omar, drafted AJ, really got the core of our team together. And then over the next 2 years, we had a lot of success in 2009, kind of getting things, steering the ship in the right direction. Obviously lost in penalty kicks in MLS Cup. Follow that up the next year with the supporter shield win, but fell short in the playoffs. And then, really that third year in 2011, we had a mission and nobody was going to get in our way. And I think that was the big thing for us was we had destiny on our side. It didn't matter what was in front of us. We were going to go through it. And you look at that team. You look at the quality of players. Obviously, Robbie Keane came into the mix mid-season. It was a special group, and you have someone like Greg Berhalter in his final year, able to kind of mentor and move into kind of a player coach role. You had Frankie Haydock. You had so many characters in that group that were so strong. And then, for me, defensively, we were the best team potentially ever. You look at that record and that back four that we had consistently playing. It was a special group, and then we had four players out of that team that ended up on the best 11 at the end of the year. So there's so many reasons why I could keep going, but certainly a special year.
Yeah, it seemed like it was one of those years, Todd, that it wasn't that I would say there wasn't a lot of drama involved, only because, you guys would score and that would be it. You knew one goal was more than enough. You didn't need to do anything else. And I remember Galaxy fans at the time and, people watching the team would be like, okay, yeah, a goal went in. Okay, everybody can go home now. This game's over. And after the heartbreak of 2010, and I think maybe, you downplay that just a little bit. 2009, obviously, heartbreak. You get to the finals and you lose in penalty kicks. 2010, though, was supposed to be the redemption of 2009, and you get to the playoffs and Dallas put a whooping on everybody and surprised everybody, and it was like, oh, okay, this is really so 2010 ended in almost as much heartbreak as 2009 when you really looked at how good that 2010 team was. Whenever you look at 2011, was there ever a doubt in your mind that you guys weren't going to win the MLS Cup?
We knew that it was going to be in LA. This is before, it was hosted by the higher seed. So it all lined up for us. And we knew that Los Angeles, at the Home Depot Center, we were going to host that final regardless. And so we knew it lined up for us, but it wasn't easy. I mean, it's never easy. Championships are so hard, and you have to be so focused all the way through. And I think that's what was so cool about that year is we had about as perfect a season as you could have. We only lost, I don't remember our record exactly, but we lost maybe 5 games the whole year. We advanced through Champions League into the next round in the format back then. And then kind of go, we win the Shield, we win, and go through to the Cup. It was an amazing year. I'm certainly biased. That was the year that I probably had my best season as a pro that year, and it was that group for David being in LA and getting his first championship with the Galaxy. That was special. And then, Robbie coming in to kind of complete really the greatest DP trio this league has ever seen. It was awesome. And then defensively, yeah, that was our mentality. I think it's cool that you mentioned that, because that was how we looked at it. We had 4 American defenders that primarily consisted of that back line, and we took a lot of pride in that. We took a lot of pride in each other, and it ended up being for me, that it was the best team up to that point in MLS history.
Eric, do you have a question? You want to roll on
Yeah.
that one?
I'll keep rolling with it. So good memory. They did only have 5 losses. So yeah, they're the players, of course, especially if you're a defender, you're going to remember having a great mark like that. But you mentioned about it being David Beckham's first MLS Cup and being around kind of what he brought to the league. And this is a question, that's a popular question, but being around him, do you have like a David Beckham story, either on the field, off the field, something that resonates, because it seems like he was a bigger than life personality off the field as well as on the field?
Yeah, off the field is probably what people know more in a way in terms of like his character, but really on the training ground is where you saw the competitor come out. You saw him take it up a notch too in playoffs and in big games. You could see that other gear that he had, the other level. But come training every single day, he was a competitor and he loved to win. And you can see in his career, he won throughout his career wherever he went. And you see why, because he takes it so seriously every day. He loves the game. He loves playing. he's a kid out there, but he's damn good, and the quality that he brought to our team was phenomenal. So it was our job to kind of complement that, to make sure that he was not the only one out there. So I think that was a trap that maybe the team fell into when he first came. He was bigger than life, and it was hard to deal with that. I think we had a group of veteran players that knew that he was going to be a very important part of our team, but he wasn't going to be our team. No single player was. And so I think when we had that understanding and were able to complement his supernatural talents, it made for a good combination. And that's why I think defensively we took so much pride in shutting the other team down, because we knew we'd score. We knew we'd get an opportunity. And when we did, it was locked down, and that was going to be the end of it.
One of my arguments that I have, Todd, about 2012, possibly, I want you to know, I think 2014 may have been the best LA Galaxy team. That was one of my arguments. And then whenever I saw the matchup between 2011 and 2012, Eric made a great point, and he made it such a good point in my head that it really stuck out. But Marcelo Sarvis joined the team in 2012. You got a full year of Robbie Keane in 2012. I think Omar Gonzalez was injured until about July in 2012 as well. I think he had some sort of injury, and he came back like July 4th, right around there. If you had 2012 play 2011 at 2012 peak and 2011 peak, now you'd have to be playing on both sides of the ball there. But at the same time, I mean, yeah, I was gonna say, is there an argument that 2012 could have beaten that 2011 team? Are they that close?
Yeah, I guess if you're talking peak, that's an interesting question, because I think what differentiated the 2 years was 2011. We were Supporter Shield winners. We were from start to finish the best team, and by a wide distance. If you look at the race throughout the year, we were consistently 2-3 games ahead of the next closest team to us. So we were so far ahead, and we never gave anyone a moment to catch us. I think what was different about 2012, we started slow, and really up until May, and after the Montreal trip, that was kind of the turning point when we went to DC, when we had the ring ceremony for 2011 at the White House. We had a couple extra days in Montreal. I'll always say, like, that was the turning point for our team. Like, we just sort of relaxed. We kicked back. We enjoyed ourselves for a couple of days. We had the ring ceremony, and after that, we never looked back. And then you take 2012's record from that point on, and it was pretty incredible. But I think when you look at the whole of the season for 2011, that's why for me it's a stronger year. But yeah, if you break down the 2012, 2014 have pretty good cases as well.
Yeah, it's always an interesting discussion. Now I think let's switch gears just a little bit, and try to sort of wrap our heads around what's going on in the soccer world right now. You're general manager up at Sacramento Republic. What's going on with your team, and how is obviously this pandemic affecting what you guys have been doing and planning for?
Yeah, it's I think this is bizarre for everyone. This is uncharted territory for all clubs. Everyone's in the same boat. We had a player that even tested positive that we announced, and just going through that as a team, I think we became closer because of it. And it's for us, it's about trying to, just like everyone, trying to keep the players motivated, keep them interested, keep the staff together. Keep that locker room vibe that you normally get every day. You maybe take for granted because you're always around and you show up and it's there and it exists. And you're in the training room and there's banter and all these things that you're used to.
Right.
When you're on lockdown, you can't have that, or at least it's not in the same way you could. And so we're trying to find creative ways to keep it interesting, keep it light, keep it fun, but also keep them motivated, knowing that, hey, we are going to come back. We don't know when yet, but we are going to come back, and when we do, we want to be ready. So that I think is the same challenge for everybody at this point. And I like the attitude of our guys. I like the mentality, and I think that hopefully will pay dividends for us when we return.
Hammer, any more questions before we let Todd get out of here?
Yeah. So speaking of Sacramento Republic, I know obviously with them coming into MLS, I have some family who lives in that area. They've been following the team for a while, so they're extremely excited to have them join the league. So planning ahead, some different expansion teams come in with different philosophies. What is going to be Sacramento's Republic? What in your vision, what type of players might they go after? What might be the style? What can we come to expect for our next California team joining the league?
Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, honestly, there's two teams obviously in LA now. You've got the Earthquakes, and adding another one to Northern California just kind of rounds it out in a nice way. And like you said, you've got family, you know what it's like here. I was it was 2014. We had just played a home game. We went back in. We were watching on the TV the last 10 minutes of Galaxy 2 versus Sacramento Republic, and we watched Galaxy 2, a lead kind of go away, and ends up being kind of the pivotal moment here in Sacramento, on a comeback, and it just changed everything. And we were shocked because we didn't, you didn't think of Sacramento as a soccer hotbed, but sure enough, it just blew up, and 20,000 fans to the first game. It was just wild, which outdrew a lot of MLS teams at the time. So it's been an awesome thing to see up close, and I think we're so excited. There's going to be a brand new stadium downtown. In terms of our philosophy and our sort of who we are, it's Sacramento's about perseverance. There's a saying, city motto is Urbs Indomita, which is indomitable city, which means perseverance, overcoming odds, and it took us a while to get the franchise. We got it. We didn't give up. And I think that's going to be the nature of the player that we're going to have is hardworking, gritty. We're not LA. We're not the Bay Area. We've got our own identity, and it's going to be something that I think the people here are going to be really proud of when we try it out for the first time in 2022.
It's going to be fun. Always fun adding more teams to the league as it keeps growing. And by 2022, I feel pretty confident in saying we'll actually be back to playing soccer. So hey, fingers crossed. We'll keep headed that way. Before I let you go, wanted to say congratulations. I know your family grew by one here not too long ago. So we wanted to wish you all the best for your growing family there, and hope everybody's staying real safe.
No, appreciate that. Thank you guys. Really good chatting with you as always. I love the Galaxy. So many good memories, and I could talk about those teams all day long. Special time. I was so lucky to be part of it, and never forget it.
Awesome, Todd. Well, wish you all the best, and stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
All right, there goes Mr. Todd Dunivant.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, I was going to say it's no surprise. Nobody's going to be surprised by this, Eric, whenever I say this. But Todd's one of my favorite people that I ever covered. And the fact that we've stayed in touch as he's gone. Remember, he was in charge of the San Francisco Deltas whenever they won the NASL championship, and then folded immediately after that. In one of the strangest stories of championships in North American soccer. Win a championship, fold. Thank you very much. We won it. Had a nice day. So he's in charge of that. Now he's general manager up there, covering and doing Sacramento Republic. And great question, obviously, them coming into the league, Eric. It's going to be fun. But Todd was such a fun guy to watch play. And when you look at left backs for the LA Galaxy, the list isn't very long. And Ashley Cole is one of them. And then, you get to sort of, in my mind, you get to Todd Dunivant. And Todd Dunivant, certainly for his longevity and his consistency with the LA Galaxy, you could certainly hold him up as possibly one of the best left backs in Galaxy history. And you would have an argument with Ashley Cole. And Ashley Cole is one of the best left backs ever to play in soccer, period. So just sort of putting those two things together is always fun, and it's always great to have him on. And again, 2011, 2012 teams, he was there for both of them. He does have 5 MLS Cup rings, 5, which is kind of crazy. Him and Landon were always arguing about who would get more, but they were on the same team so often that they ended up getting 5 together. So it was great having Todd on the show with us. Eric, what'd you think of the arguments there for 2011 that Todd had? I mean, are we settled with this? Is everybody happy with 2011, or are we sort of sitting there going, come on? I mean, the guy on the team says that 2011 was better than 2012. So it's kind of hard for me to argue, right? Who are we?
Yeah, I think there are several players who were part of those squads who say that 2011 was the best team. I know someone showed a chat that they had with AJ De La Garza. He chose 2011. So I think 2011, and Todd mentioned it, from top to bottom, beginning of the season to the end of the season, they were the best team. He entertained our idea of if you magically put them peak teams against each other, it would be interesting. But 2011 is still the fair team to reward. But just to go back to Todd, and you mentioned it, that being one of the most consistent left backs and probably the greatest LA Galaxy left back ever, if we're talking about best ever. And what I'm going to say may sound like an insult, but it's really not an insult. It's you don't appreciate guys like Todd until they're gone. And you realize, we never had to worry about that position. And he was just so solid and so consistent. And maybe it wasn't going to be that, jump off the field type of activity. But, when he was gone is when you realize, man, we really had a solid defense and a solid left back position that we never really had to worry about while he was back there. It was never, sketchy times, when we talk about some current LA Galaxy roster where you get a little bit nervous when teams get in behind, but you never really had that worry. So I think he, the word underrated and underappreciated gets thrown around a lot, but I think he really is one that you didn't truly understand his value to a team until he was no longer on the team.
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely correct that you sort of overlook those things. By the way, this is not. I get it. This is not an insult. Todd was not fast. He's not a fast guy. He was always well positioned. And he was really good at that, and he made the position look easy. You go back to Omar Gonzalez and AJ De La Garza and Sean Franklin, and what they were able to put together with those four back there. And he talked about, Greg Berhalter in there at one point too. And, AJ De La Garza sort of comes in and plays at the right back position there was all these little things that sort of had happened with that team in 2010 and 2011, and trying to figure out the little pieces. And it always seemed like, 2009 was a surprise. We've talked about that. 2010 was supposed to be the redemption tour. It didn't happen, and it hurt. We talked to Kevin Hartman about that because he was on the FC Dallas team that won that particular game. Was that the final that had Colorado and Dallas? Is 2010 Colorado and Dallas? The world's worst.
I don't know if
MLS.
I was gonna say, were those both Western Conference teams? The way they used to do it, I remember. I think the Galaxy beat the New York Red Bulls in the Western Conference.
One of the early rounds of that game.
Yeah. So I forget, but I do remember. I think it was Colorado and Kansas. I remember there were some clunkers there, circa 2010. So. Or 2010 exact, because the rest were all Galaxy. But I believe that was the FC Dallas Colorado 1-0 boring.
I think it was an own goal. I think an own goal won that MLS Cup. It was horrible. I remember that. It was good times. Good times. So anyway, let's continue on now and touch on some other things that we wanted to get to. We talked to you about the league delaying. One of the things the LA Galaxy announced, Eric, and it was something that you and I have taken advantage of, and a lot of people have taken advantage of, is that the LA Galaxy joined the other AEG properties in supporting the Mayor's Fund for COVID-19. 100% of the proceeds go towards the Mayor's Fund. This is not something where you spend $10 and 50 cents of it goes off to a fund. This was you spend $10, $10 goes. Pretty simple, pretty easy, and it was highly discounted stuff. I mean, there were authentic, and I wasn't fast enough to get there, but there were authentic Robbie Keane jerseys for $40. That's a $120 shirt, and it's for $40. You can get it. I did, of course, avail myself of the Gyasi Zardes bobblehead for $5 and the Steven Gerrard bobblehead for $5 because why not? It's $5. There's a whole bunch of things in there. I think I bought a Cosmo hat, the old Cosmo color hat, for I think $5. Again, it just some ridiculous. Most of the stuff is sold out there. That's what I've seen as I've gone there now. But the Team LA store, you should still go check it out because I've been told that they're supposed to be refreshing stuff as this continues. So there could be more finds there that you might want to purchase. I spent, the first time I went through there and quickly racked up the $35 charge, Eric, because it was $35 and I got a whole bunch of stuff and I was really happy about that. And then I saw other people, what they were buying because they were, and I'm like, well, I want to get that too. So then the other $45 I spent, about $75 total, was on there to, I got to keep filling the studio up, Eric. You know that it runs out of stuff. So, you got to keep filling it up.
I would say you have a nice excuse to say it's for the studio. I go on there and I also bought the Gyasi bobblehead. He was a favorite player of my daughter when he was here. So I said, it's for my daughter, it's not for me. And then of course I bought reusable bags. you always need reusable bags. So I kind of found all
Always.
these excuses. And then, my wife kind of tells me, what are we buying clothes for? What are you buying Galaxy stuff? They're not playing. We're not going anywhere. We're not going out. Why do we need stuff? So, but much like you, I'm a fan of a good deal. And so if you stick around the TMLA store, again, the fact that 100% of the proceeds, it's for a good cause. And you're going to find those rare things. You're not going to get your, 2020 Chicharito jersey there. You're going to get your Steven Gerrard Lego set, your Donovan Ricketts Lego, your old Cosmo beanie. So if you're a collector and maybe there are some blind spots of yours where you didn't follow the team, or maybe something you've been looking for, you might be able to find it there. A lot of the stuff is sold out, but I know some scarves, they have like a 2005 scarf, 2002 style scarf. So there's some cool things there if you're into the Galaxy and you're into collecting, some fun items there.
Yeah, I think there were some scarves, and the last thing I need is scarves. But I bought. I think I had to because they were like $10, and yeah, I know. There's scarves everywhere. So yeah, they were $10. It was funny. John in the chat room says that he bought a Keen doll and a bobblehead, and he also bought 10 Keen bags because those reusable bags were
They were
$1, Eric. They were $1. How could you not buy more? So I bought 5 of those and like 5 of the Gyasi Zardes ones, and it was for a good cause, and it's stuff that you're never gonna get that deal on ever again. A Gyasi Zardes bobblehead in any other world costs you at least $35 or $40, and that's discounted. It could be higher because I think I paid like $60 for my Zlatan one that is in the studio. So yeah, it was one of those good deals, and it was fun to just go through there. I know people were buying stuff for their dogs, because there was a whole bunch of dog stuff. It was just yeah. You got some
I got a dog
for
jersey.
Jet Rocket.
Unfortunately, they only had one available for my dog's size, so they're gonna have to share. The brothers are gonna have to share that Galaxy jersey. So yeah, good times.
Good times indeed. All right, so that's that. Now let's get to a little bit of rumors here before we get into something else that's kind of fun. And I knew I had the perfect person on the show for this particular rumor, and I'm afraid that the high-pitched squeals that will come out of your mouth whenever I mention this will not be able to be picked up by our audio. May scramble the YouTube feed, but everybody should just hang on. Bleacher Report insider Dean Jones was reporting today, says that Cristiano Ronaldo, that guy. Cristiano Ronaldo wants to conquer the world, and that means that basically America could be next. The likely destinations: Miami, duh. Los Angeles, duh. Those are the two. And there's 3 teams between those two locations. And so you can certainly put that wherever you want, Eric. But he's 35 years old now, Cristiano Ronaldo. He's not exactly the least controversial player in the world either. Obviously, there's some sexual assault allegations in Nevada that have been going on in circles and rounds, and it's I would say it's difficult to figure out what the truth is there, but certainly it's something that you have to consider if you're bringing him in. But the age thing, 35 years old, he's not a young chicken anymore. So is Cristiano Ronaldo coming to the LA Galaxy? Is that a possibility in your mind?
Of course, that's a possibility. Everything's a possibility, especially when you're the LA Galaxy. So you mentioned it, 35 years old, not the youngster that we saw tearing it up at Manchester United and Real Madrid, but he's still putting in great work at Juventus, still scoring goals, still providing service for the Portuguese national team. With the Euros being postponed this year, this could have been a last hurrah for Ronaldo as far as international competition. Although if you're a follower of him, you see he basically treats his body like a temple, and is someone, if you're going to believe that the player is going to be able to extend their peak until they're 40, CR7 is the guy who could probably do it, because he basically treats his body like a machine, the way he trains and the way he takes care of it. So, we saw what Zlatan could do after knee surgery at 38. So Cristiano Ronaldo at 36, with no knee surgeries, I could imagine him being a perfectly great piece to build your team around and having a lot of great success, because, with a player that caliber, you don't say no. Just an interesting wrinkle with all this is LA or Miami. That's always going to be, those destinations. With European players, they may often fancy the East Coast because they do, shorter flight to Europe. That's something that they may consider. He does have family in Portugal. And so if that's something to consider, that's a check in the box of Miami. But if you wanted to go full on conspiracy theory, which is something that I'm apt to do and that I like to do, is Cristiano Ronaldo is a Herbalife nutrition athlete. And so where else would you want to go? than the club
Yeah.
with Herbalife Nutrition on the sponsor of the jersey. So, I mean, it seems like a match made in heaven. We're signing Cristiano Ronaldo. I'll pull a Kevin Baxter. I'm announcing it now. He's coming. Start getting those jerseys ready. He's coming in COVID-19 afterward. He's definitely coming in. So go ahead and mark it down. The one argument against, because I like to talk out of both sides of my mouth, is he's also a Nike athlete, and the last 2 teams he's gone to have been Adidas teams. So maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. Probably doesn't. But if you're like me and you like a conspiracy theory, Ronaldo, he's coming. Herbalife athlete joining the LA Galaxy in 2022.
Yeah, it was funny. I put out on Twitter that I said, if you've been following or listening to the show for any amount of time, there has always been this backdoor rumor that Cristiano Ronaldo would be coming to the LA Galaxy eventually, that it was going to happen, that it's already been decided, that things have already been talked about, decided, agreed upon, and that he would be coming to the LA Galaxy at some point in his career. And that old wives' tale continues to weave its way through every little part of fabric. I even tweeted out, I said, I'm pretty sure that Jared Dubois and I probably had this conversation many times on our podcast back in 2009 or 2010 or 2011, whenever people were saying, oh yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo, he's never coming. It's like, wait a minute, there's this thing that has been talked about over and over and over again. And it's funny because it lives in this special place, Eric. It's not necessarily something the everyday fan knows, but fans who have been around long enough have heard this rumor over and over and over again, and it seems to lie somewhere within the deep, darkest reaches of the LA Galaxies. It's like in the corridors under the stadium. There has been this agreement with Cristiano, and that he could be coming. And so it's just something to watch. Again, 35 years old. His birthday was in February, so he will be 36 next February. It's a whole bunch of interesting stuff to talk about, and certainly saying that he could be coming to America. Listen, that seems like it's a logical place for him to show up. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he ends up with the LA Galaxy. Nothing surprises me anymore at this point whenever it comes to the LA Galaxy and who they can land, Eric. And I think that is, one, that we're spoiled, and 2, that the LA Galaxy and Uncle Phil have made it a priority to surprise us on a regular basis. So it's one of those that you sit there and say, is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. I'm telling you right now, it's possible. If the same team that can sign Joao Pedro can also sign Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, so those are things that can happen.
The LA Galaxy is just a pipeline of Portuguese stars. It's pretty clear that that's what they do. So yeah, I these rumors, and as long as there's going to be superstars, and as long as America is the sports capital of the world, that's going to be, you're always going to see. Pele did it in the 70s. You saw Beckham do it. Zlatan came. If you want to consider, someone like Pirlo on that level, or Lampard, Gerrard. This is something that every entertained. It's not surprising to hear names like that thrown around. We know, Guillermo Barcelona has spoken with Messi's dad, so Messi's been on there. Ronaldo's been on there. These names are always going to circulate with the Americas as long as there's stars in the world.
Messi and Cristiano on the LA Galaxy in 2022, 2021. Really, it seems like a lock. It's no wonder the LA Galaxy are going to probably let Christian Pavone go, right? I mean, it just wouldn't make sense to have Pavone and Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Just, it's an embarrassment of riches over and over again. So anyway, I'm sure we'll keep an eye on that one as we continue to march towards regaining soccer. And, the transfer window is going to come this winter or this summer, Eric. And, you were talking about the Euros, which is funny. Because the Euro 2020, it was the 2020 Euros are now going to be played in 2021, but they're going to retain the name of the 2020 Euros. And by the way, at first I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And then immediately after that, reading some of the article, they said, well, mostly because they already printed out all this stuff that has 2020 Euros on it, and they didn't want to spend the money to reprint it. I'm like, genius. It's a genius. We're good. We're good. Everything is fine. So it's like that's exactly the reason why it should be called the 2020 Euros in 2021.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. It's the Euro 2020 of 2020 happening in 2021. It's kind of that same feel. One of the funniest things I saw was the first reply was whoever squatted on the @Euro 2021 on Twitter, they've got to be kicking themselves because they thought they were going to be able to sell that handle, and they're not going to be able to sell it anymore.
Yeah, somebody said it's a great idea just to start 2020 over again. So whenever 2020 goes out, we'll just, let's just pretend this is 2020 all over again. Let's do it. I think MLS would also be on board that. All right, before we wrap up, I have one more thing I want to get to. the Loyola Marymount University put out a poll, and basically they've been running this poll since 2014, and it's a sports poll, and it's about how popular certain teams are and certain players are within Los Angeles County. So the 2020 results are in, and in no surprise, it was a battle of two teams in LA. Eric, if I told you the two most popular teams in Los Angeles, any sport, what would probably those two teams you would pick?
This is a debate that we used to have over on the Guys in Shorts podcast when we covered all LA sports team. It's whose town is it? I think 1 and 2 you have Lakers and Dodgers, and I think
Yep.
it's 1A, 1B depending on who's in form. The Dodgers were ranked number 1 probably the last 3 or 4 years because of the down years that the Lakers had. But I think when the Lakers are on, to me, I think this is a Lakers town first and foremost. So I think Lakers would be 1, Dodgers would be 2, and then to me, there's so many other teams that it's a coin flip after that point. You have Clippers, you have the Angels, you have the Galaxy. I think Galaxy probably nestles in about 4th or 5th, if I had to guess.
Okay, so you were correct. Lakers number 1, 35% of the respondents. By the way, they picked 1,000 people. It is representative of a fairly large group, those 1,000 people. So, the poll that they ran is statistically sound, and so you can sort of make these generalizations on this. Lakers 35%, Dodgers 31%. Number 3 was the Rams. Now the Rams, remember, Dodgers are 31%, Lakers are 35%, the Rams 7.5%. All right, so you go from 31% down to 7.5%. Okay, that makes sense.
I was going to say
Clippers.
Rams surprised me at 3rd. When you say the drop from 31 to 7, then okay, I understand why that's a 3rd place.
Yep, absolutely. 7.5% for the Rams. 4th, 6.4% to the Clippers. So the Clippers there, but 5th is the LA Galaxy at 6.2%. Then 6th is the Angels at 5.3%. There's a lot of arguments whether the Angels should even be considered, but people were asked what their favorite sports team in LA was, and people responded with the Angels, and Los Angeles Angels, Anaheim. That's the whole thing. Anyway, we're not getting into that argument. 5.3% for the Angels, 3.4% for the Kings, 2.1% for LAFC, 1.6% for the Chargers, and 1.1% for the Sparks. Okay, so that was how it all played out. Now, obviously, LA Galaxy fans jumping up and down just 0.2% behind an NBA franchise, the Clippers. Now, it's the second franchise in the city. Everybody sort of acknowledges that. But at the same time, just barely behind that, 6.2% for the Galaxy, sitting in 5th place and the most popular soccer team in Southern California by a fairly statistically wide margin, 2.1% for LAFC and 6.2% for the LA Galaxy. Now, things switch a little bit though whenever you talk about when participants were asked to select their favorite player. Okay, favorite player. Eric, surprise, everybody's favorite player was LeBron James. 46% of the vote, with only 3 other players even reaching 5%. It was the Dodgers' Cody Bellinger at 10.7% and LAFC's Carlos Vela at 8.3%. Mike Trout finished that up with 6.7% there as well. So no real surprise there. I will tell you, Zlatan Ibrahimovic in the 2020 poll was still listed at this. He finished at 1.9%. Let's see, I want to make sure I got that. Yeah, 1.9% on there. And he technically wasn't even playing on the team anymore. So
I was going to say, it looks like you have the stats in front of you. I don't have it in front of me. Is this pre-Chicharito? Because I think if you polled again, you might get a different response. Because someone like Mike Trout and Carlos Vela, they're not really out in the media. They're not really personalities. So
right.
So they're not going to jump to the front of the page. I think given the options, they're going to be on there. But at the same time, I think if you were to pull this post Chicharito, regardless of his first 2 games with the Galaxy, popularity amongst fans and households, I think he'd easily jump up on that list pretty quickly.
Well, here was also in the article published by the LA Times, again, off of this Loyola Marymount University poll. Now, they've been running this poll since 2014. They did not run it in 2019, which may have seen Zlatan Ibrahimovic really sort of have a more of an impact on the poll. And they didn't break it down, or at least I didn't dig real deep into this 20-page thing. I wasn't gonna do that, but I got some of the abstracts, some of the takeaways on it. I didn't see if they had anything in 2019. There was no poll run in 2019, so it was 2018 was the last time, but they've been running it since 2014. So of the 51 demographic breakdowns, however, considered in the LMU survey, LeBron James was the most popular athlete in 49. I'm just going to say this because it was in the article and I found it interesting, and it's also a duh, but also a question mark. So just, I don't want people to think I'm trying to be rude here. I'm just reading what was said in this article. It has to have a ton of caveats in it. So LeBron James was, out of the 51 demographics, LeBron James was most popular in 49 of them. So across the board, the most popular. The other two, so those other two demographics, Carlos Vela was the most popular in the other two. And that was the demographics he was most popular in were Spanish speakers. Okay, makes sense. Okay, that one I can see. Certainly. And like you said, if you run that again with Chicharito, does Chicharito do that? And the second one that he was most popular with, Carlos Vela, was people that had not completed high school. Those were the two. And we move on from there. The other sort of fun thing that I got here, I was just, again, I'm reading it directly from the report. I'm doing my job.
Just presenting without just sharing it out there. The other demographic, I wasn't sure if Nick Jr. viewers, if they maybe were a little confused, if that's why Carlos Vela was voted most popular. All right, yes, okay. We're gonna play nice.
You weren't gonna say that. I get it. Okay, so
someone might
moving
say
on.
That. I didn't say it. One might say.
One might say that, but they didn't. Nobody said that, actually. Whenever you think about it, don't go back and play the tape. There is one other interesting thing, and it was not in the article, but I was able to put it together for you. I said that this thing was being run since 2014. There is another team that they did poll in terms of popularity in Los Angeles and Los Angeles County starting in 2014. That was Chivas USA. Chivas USA is listed on this. It was listed at 2.7% in 2014. It was listed at 1.9% in 2015. And that means that in 2014, Chivas USA was more popular, 2.7%, than LAFC is popular right now, with I would argue, a much better team than they ever had in terms of things at the 2.1%. So again, just interesting whenever you're looking at all these things. Does it mean anything? No. Is it interesting to see that the LA Galaxy has wide and broad support across an entire LA County? Yes. I mean, we could have told you that, Hammer. We didn't need anybody to do that for you, but that's what you're seeing within this poll, and that's what you have.
I was also going to say it's important to note, where these polls are coming from, and this is something out of a university. Sometimes you will see things come out of a Twitter poll, or fans were polled at this specific website, and it's going to skew a certain way. Who's the best MLS franchise? The results are going to skew a certain way. So you may see some different things out there, but I think this is a trusted poll where you can say, and you see it around the city. There are pockets where the noisy neighbors are popular, but I think broadly in Southern California and the Los Angeles area, the Galaxy are clearly, a fan favorite.
It is certainly that. So an interesting poll, sort of take it there. LA Galaxy, the most popular team in Southern California in terms of their popularity across LA County. In terms of soccer teams there, it's still Lakers town, and it's LeBron James's town right now. And that's not really a surprise to anyone. All right. I think that's about it, Eric. I think we covered everything we needed to cover. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on? I mean, do you want to brag about a goal that you scored or didn't score or anything like that on your
Not this week.
Not this week? No, you're
yeah.
Done?
I mean, it's funny if you're following Cosmo SC drama. God bless you for following it. But I made the first team. Then I got challenged for my first team spot. Lost my first team spot. Then we had a scrimmage, and there's a whole thing. Cosmo SC 2 beat Cosmo SC 1, the first team. It's a whole thing. So I'm now on Twitch.
Relegation. I mean, Cosmo SC2 is now the number one. They get to take the name, right?
Yeah, that's how it works. So it's actually funny. I will give a plug for Cosmo SC. This Saturday they are going to be taking on San Jose Earthquakes Pro Clubs team. So this thing has kind of gathered a following and got enough eyes behind it to where now other clubs' supporters are catching on. And so, LA Galaxy fan group playing in FIFA versus a San Jose Earthquakes fan group. So it's going to be a lot of fun on Saturday night at 8:30, usual stream, which is Who is Kylo on Twitch. And then also just a shameless plug for myself, because that's how I roll. I'm also on Twitch, going to be streaming some of these games as they happen. You can find me at EVHammer9. So, I'm on Twitch now. It's a thing.
I was going to say, last thing before we talked about it on Monday, but just João Pedro speaking out of turn about Zlatan and his $300 million and his private island.
I was going to say, I was proud of you. You handled that perfectly. If you read the actual original piece from Record in Portugal, it was a story about him and his journey. And he, mentioned some things because, of course, when you play on a team with Zlatan, they're going to ask you about Zlatan. And so he shared his stories. And so, of course, the American media and MLS journalists and people who were familiar with Zlatan took the specific quotes about Zlatan, made the article about Zlatan, and made it seem like, João was just saying these things, as a hit piece, a quote unquote hit piece. But really, he was just sharing stories of what happened. And you mentioned it. And I, I have some sources as well that can confirm that those things were actually said. So whether you, agree with the player's ability or the players, whether they were a legend, whether they were not. I'm personally, I loved Zlatan. I loved his time here. He gave a lot of great memories to the club. I'll always remember the games that he played in. So it's nothing against him, but that was his persona. And those were the things that he said. And it just gives a little bit of a peek into it. I don't think João expected that to be, to get the legs that it did. But I think part of that has to do with quarantine as well. People are dying for stories and will take any quotes out of context that they can to make something happen. So, the way you described it on Monday's show, I thought was excellent. It was what it was. He didn't say anything that was not untrue, ruffled a few feathers, gave people a story for 3 or 4 days. But I think it was much to do about nothing. It wasn't really things we didn't know or didn't suspect. And it's also, that wasn't really the purpose of the piece on João. It was more of his return to Portugal and getting playing time. It's funny, if you read the article, he actually has, I'm not going to say disparaging things of some deceased, but he may have had issues with some coaching staff members instead of other players. Zlatan, he even said there was something that motivated him, and he had more issues, getting playing time with some of the coaching staff. So, that part didn't get shared. So it was just interesting, the things people pick up.
Well, of course. I mean, Zlatan, that's how it works. All right. Why don't you tell people where they can find you then, Eric, and we'll get on out of here.
All right. As always, you can find me on Twitter at JSHammer. You can also follow me on Instagram at Galaxy Profile. That's Galaxy PROFOUL. And again, I'm on Twitch at EVHammer9.
All right. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Our bracket is done, but I'm sure we'll find some other stuff to have on out there. Our FIFA games are up there. 3 games for you. 3 games. So you can check it out. And we'll probably do another one this weekend as well. All right. For Eric the Portuguese Hammer, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.